Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. Wonderful to be back in Minneapolis for Out on the Town Theater. Minneapolis has a proud tradition of gay theater. It housed the Out and About Theater for, I believe, 10 years, which made it at that point the longest lasting gay theater in America. I was very gratified when I heard that Raymond LeBrun and his friends had decided to continue the tradition. I was asked to speak on the origins of gay theater, more properly on the origins of the contemporary gay USA theater. There, of course, was gay theater before. Now, not much, but there was. And there are several books in which you can read about it, which I'm going to tell you about later. What I know best, and can most properly talk to you about, is the current gay theater movement in America, and how it originated, the problems it met, its successes, and how it spread. Okay? We will talk for about 45 minutes and then open for a half hour of question and answer. They provided me with a blackboard and fluorescent chalk, and I was ordered to use them. Or else. There are three principal places and three principal names to remember on this subject. There will be more. The Cafe Chino opened in New York City in 1959 and began to do gay plays in about 61 or 62. They kept no records, and dates are vague. Okay? And it was run by, to my mind, the most important man in modern theater, certainly the most important man in modern gay theater, Joe Chino, about whom you'll be hearing more. Not long after Joe began doing plays regularly in his coffee house, which is usually considered the first of the off-Broadway theaters in New York, a woman named Ellen Stewart opened a place across town, modeled on the Chino, called Cafe La Mama. And if Joe is La Papa of gay theater, Ellen is its mother. Joe Chino died in 67. Ellen, God bless her, continues apace. Neither of these places did exclusively gay theater. And the reason they stand out now is that the gay theater movement has so continually spread from there. I mean, you can trace almost anything that happens in gay theater back to these two places, or to a third one, the Playhouse of the Ridiculous. That really should be Theater of the Ridiculous, my misnomer, which was founded a couple of years after La Mama by three geniuses, a writer named Ronald Tavell, an actor named Charles Ludlam, and a director named John Vaccaro, each of whom later split to form their own fragment called variously the Playhouse of the Ridiculous, the Theater of the Ridiculous Theater. Okay? And out of these three places, and on the model of them, a lot of other places grew up. I can't pretend to know all of them, and certainly couldn't list all of them here, but I'll tell you some of the more important ones. The reason I'm starting with the theaters, rather than with the writers and directors, is quite simply that first we had to have a place. There was essentially no gay theater in 1961 or 2. There had been a few prior examples, as I say, but there was no gay theater. There was no place where you could come in and say, I've got a play, and it's gay, and have it accepted. And Joe Chino gave us that. He gave us a floor. Many other kinds of theater started at the Chino, but especially gay theater. I'll be telling you some of the authors later. But off of these three theaters came TOSOS, which stands for The Other Side of Silence, which was founded by Doric Wilson. Isn't this fun? And Theater Rhinoceros in San Francisco, which I do not know if it was founded by, but in my memory was run by Alan Estes. And of course the Out and About in Minneapolis and St. Paul, run by Mr. Reese. I don't know if Mr. Reese is here tonight. Okay. And the At the Drama Shelter. Oh. Which was founded by Darrell Hale in Chicago. There are lots more gay theaters. These, as far as I know, were the primary ones, the fonts of it. Okay? Within 5 years after Joe Chino opened the Cafe Chino in New York, there were over 300 off-Broadway theaters. Many of them open to gay plays. Similarly, the Chino and the La Mama were imitated in Europe, Africa, Asia, you know, and often carried their repertory with them. But that's the future. We're going. Okay? The reason I emphasize these names and take the time to write them is most of you probably never heard them. There's a good reason for that. The history of this particular period of gay theater has not been written. And I'll start with a book here called We Can Always Call Them Bulgarians, a very good book about gay theater on Broadway and the West End, which knows so little about the origins of the current movement in gay theater that it doesn't even mention the fact that Harvey Fierstein's beautiful Torch Song trilogy was running for 5 years in the off-Broadway theaters before it went to Broadway. So this, for instance, is a very good book to read about gay theater in big commercial theater. Where it came from, you will not discover here. Okay? All righty. These names should be famous, and they are not, because at first they were gay theater, and no one would write about them because they were gay. When products of them moved into the moneyed, commercial, large Broadway theaters, the writers either didn't know they had come from elsewhere, or they didn't want to write about poor little off-Broadway places. So we're going to talk about a secret history tonight. Isn't this dramatic? I want to talk about kinds of gay theater, people who made it, and what happened to them. And it's a complicated subject, so bear with me. I have to crowd it into a few minutes. For convenience sake, I divide the kinds of gay theater under the names of 4 artists named Wilson. As it happens, 4 of the very important ones have been named Wilson in 4 different areas of gay theater. They were not necessarily the first artists of their kind. It's just for convenience. Most gay theater, most gay writers, most gay-inspired theater has been of one particular kind. That is, plays about straight people written by gay writers, right? Okay. I see a couple of names I should have put here. Noel Coward and Oscar Wilde. For a very long time, this was, of course, the only gay theater there was, except for undercover drag shows. I'm not going to cover drag shows because nobody's covered them. There is no history of them. I can't tell you where they came from. Okay? I'm not sure they properly belong under gay theater, since usually they are men playing women, and the plays tend to be about women. You know, so only indirectly do they relate to gay writers, to gay experience. But there are millions of plays written by gay writers about straight people. And when you start looking at the list of Oscar Wilde, Thornton Wilder, Noel Coward, Tennessee Williams, Jerome Lawrence, John Van Druten, John Patrick, William Inge, Shakespeare, Marlowe, Euripides, Albee, Malm, clear on down. It's an extraordinary list. And it's often been questioned, why is the theater, the Western world, so dominated by plays by gay males when they couldn't write about their own experience? I have a theory of this, which you may be sure you're about to hear. Other minorities, no one has ever quite understood why so many great artists come from minorities. You know, one convenient explanation is they have to stand outside and watch. And they observe the ruling class, then flatter it, or criticize it, entertain it, and get paid for it. But there's only one minority that grows up within the majority. Okay? Blacks, Hispanics, Orientals, Indians, grow up outside the white world. Women, until very recently, grew up outside the male world, did not know the actual inside white male world. Okay? Jews, Catholics, people with weird religions like that, grew up outside the Protestant world. So your white male Anglo-Saxon Protestant was essentially a mystery to most of these minorities and did not generally write honestly about his own world. But there was one outsider who not only was allowed to learn all the secrets of the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant male power structure, he was forced to. He was born in it. He was alien to it. If he revealed himself, he would die. So the gay male had to learn all the code words, all the passwords, all the secrets, all the guise of the power structure, and observed it from inside. And this came out usually in its playwrights in two ways. You either had the bitter satirist, the wild, the coward, who watched the straight world and guyed it, caricatured it, teased it, that way. But there is another road that so many of these great gay writers followed. That was to open up and understand it. And the plays of these men are characterized by the depth of understanding. Take a writer like William Inge, who wrote Picnic and Dark at the Top of the Stairs, Bus Stop. Okay. Mr. Inge was one of two gay playwrights in the 50s, along with Mr. Williams, Tennessee Williams, who not only accurately observed straight people's behavior, but observed it so well that it influenced their behavior, became actually role models for heterosexual relationships. And I think the reason that so many of these gay male writers created that effect was that being gay, you can either close off, go outside, as I said, and caricature what you see, or you can take advantage of your trapped position to become understanding. A gay male writer could understand men because he was a man. He could understand women because he loved men. He could understand children because he was not allowed to mature. He could understand other minorities because he was outside like them. And so you get these intensely compassionate writers, Inge, Williams, Wilder, who wrote the ultimate play about heterosexual life, Our Town. Over and over you find that. Shakespeare, some people will fight about his being gay. Marlowe, no one will fight. John Patrick, Hasty Heart, Everybody Loves Opal. Jerome Lawrence, who along with the heterosexual writer Robert Lee, wrote Inherit the Wind and Anti-Maim. These are extraordinary people. They've given heterosexuals the image of themselves. Great achievement, great achievement. Unfortunately, they were seldom, if ever, allowed to express themselves directly. Mr. Williams, for instance, who was so toweringly great he could get away with more than most of them, had in his great period 3 offstage gay characters, who were discussed, and was considered extraordinarily daring for doing that, and was only allowed to get away with it because they died horribly, almost ruining heterosexual relationships. That was it. That was the only hint in his work that there was a gay world, a gay experience. Mr. Inge frequently in his plays has a sort of outsider. In Bus Stop, the hero has a devoted friend who backs away so he won't spoil the hero's marriage. In Picnic, the brilliant little adolescent girl, Millie, fights being a girl. In Dark at the Top of the Stairs, the brilliant Jewish cadet has many of the qualities of apartness, sensitivity, observation, neurosis that would characterize a gay person. Mr. Inge, till late in his life, could not present a gay person. So the advantage was that it gave compassion to these people's depiction of other people, but frustrated them. Mr. Inge killed himself because of it. We have no idea how many others have. Some characteristics of these gay writers' straight plays is you'll seldom find any concern in them about having babies. Someone once said you could tell that Noel Coward was a gay writer because his lovers dashed about the continent in the 20s, never considered getting pregnant. You know, talked about all of the problems. You know, I don't know if that's true or not, but it's funny. Yeah. So off Broadway, the writer who prospered there, the gay writer who prospered there most along these lines was Lanford Wilson, who indeed early in his career in 1964 did write about a gay character in a beautiful play called The Madness of Lady Bright, which might be called the first play of the modern gay theater movement. It was 13 years before he wrote another one. He applied his tremendous sensitivity, his gay sensitivity, if you will, to writing marvelous, compassionate plays about all kinds of people, became very rich and famous, and finally dared in the 5th of July once again to write gay characters, and now frequently includes gay characters in his plays. So he is the Wilson from off Broadway who falls into that category. We all know Mr. Albee's plays, you know, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. Now I'm going to talk about the critical reception of these people when their gayness begins to be perceived. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf was hailed as the masterpiece it is. And I myself attended the original Broadway production and saw the heterosexual husbands and wives recognizing that, being moved, torn by it. A friend commented that he had never seen so many couples at intermission of a play rushing for the phones to call the babysitter and see if their children were all right. It seemed the play so moved them, so they recognized it. It was such a brilliant dissection of heterosexual relationships and was applauded as such by the critics. Then when word slipped out into the critical fraternity that Mr. Albee was indeed gay, suddenly there began to be articles by critics saying, you know, I think that play is really about drag queens. I knew it all the time. It was never any good. If you follow theater criticism, you'll know the same thing happened to Mr. Williams when his private life became known. Mr. Wilson has been very lucky. He's been allowed to go right ahead and write gay characters and still win Pulitzer Prizes. So the suffering and frustrations of a lot of these people may finally have paid off. We'll find out. That's one kind of gay writer. Now I'm jumping about in time here because of these categories. Doric Wilson actually wrote before Lanford. Way back in 61 or 2, Doric Wilson, a brilliant playwright, dared write a play about Salome called And Now She Dances, in which John the Baptist refuses to marry Salome because he says he's gay and he wants a man. It was a brilliant play. Doric had written a couple of little plays before this, and it attracted a great deal of attention from producers. They came to see this play, got up halfway through it, stormed out of the Cafe Chino, and so depressed Doric that he didn't write a play for 10 years, until he came back and formed his own gay theater, The Other Side of Silence. And thank God he came back, because he's written a number of marvelous gay plays now, including what some people call the masterpiece of the gay theater movement, Street Theater, which is fortunately available in a wonderful book now called Out Front, an anthology of gay and lesbian theater. Some marvelous stuff in here and some that I don't think is too marvelous, but I didn't edit it. But Street Theater is in here. It also features an introduction by Mr. Shuey, which is not bad. Not entirely accurate, but not bad. I want to recommend a book, too, since it's come up. Gay Plays from Avon, edited by William Hoffman. Mr. Harvey Hertz, who was kind enough to bring these books in for me, didn't happen to bring a copy, but it's widely available. Gay Plays, edited by William M. Hoffman, which has a brilliant and concise introduction about gay theater before the Cafe Chino. Okay? I recommend it as a corrective to certain errors in this one and to the complete omission of all important data from this one. It's a good book about Broadway, though. I don't knock it. Okay. Also, in my new book, Untold Decades, Mr. Harvey Firestein and Mr. William Hoffman have written little introductions covering some very pungent material about gay theater. And there's one by me, which is, of course, perfect. Okay. All righty? Right. But Doric was, for all intents and purposes, the first modern American playwright to sit down and write about gay people. Not gay plays showing the gay view of straight people, but plays about gay people. And I mentioned, it was like a bomb when he first did it. It terrified people. But when he came back, he wrote wonderful ones. And largely because of him, a lot of other people began to write plays about gay life. Now, I'm only talking here about gay writers who have written about gay life. There have been some straight writers who approached it. But William M. Hoffman, who wrote As Is, did his first plays at the Cafe Chino, and has always said he would never have dared to write a gay play had he thought anyone was going to come down to this dinky little coffee house in the village and see them. You know, that privacy was a large part of what the Chino offered certain people. Myself, I wandered into the Chino in 1961 with only vague theatrical aspirations. I actually followed a pretty boy wearing no underwear into it. And I loved the place, and Joe Chino, who ran it, hung around stage managing and that sort of thing for 3 years. Finally got an idea for a play. I wrote it. It was about gay people. By that time, it seemed nothing to write about gay people. I brought it in. Joe said, let's do it. We put it on. And I'm happy, that was in 1964. And I'm happy to say that earlier this year, I went out to see a gay theater in Connecticut open with it. You know, none of us knew at the time our plays would ever be done again or go anywhere. It was just fun. We were all 50s kids. And if any of you here remember the 50s, you probably feel as hateful as I do towards shows like Grease, which showed them to be times of hilarious freedom and joy. Anyone who lived through the 50s, especially anyone gay, knows that it was a nightmare, and that the repression of it drove a great many of us to New York. I went with no theatrical ambitions. I just was going crazy in Roswell, New Mexico. I went to New York looking for men, and I found the most wonderful man in the world, Joe Chino, who helped us get these plays out to the world and start breaking those awful bonds. Okay. Harvey Fierstein writes about gay people. Now, Harvey is what we call third-generation gay theater. You know, there was Doric and us. There was Charles Ludlam, the actor who helped found the Playhouse of the Ridiculous, who eventually began to write his own plays. And Harvey Fierstein appeared in plays by me, by Ronnie Tavel, by Charles Ludlam, by many people. At first, he was a drag queen, supposedly the youngest drag queen stripper in the dirty basements of New York. He was picked up and tossed into some shows, decided that writers had more power than actors, and wrote a play. Wrote a play for himself to act in. You know, just a good role for himself. Had no idea it was going to turn out to be Torch Song Trilogy, or that it would become insanely famous. You know. But Harvey just says, I'm third generation. It seemed natural to me to write gay plays, because he'd been seeing our plays all those years. So many other people whose names you ought to know, and won't find, for instance, in this book on the history of gay theater. Cal Yeomans, the #1 writer on Leathermen, the SM playwright par excellence. Larry Kramer, who at last is known because of his beautiful play about the AIDS crisis, The Normal Heart. Bob Chesley, 2 of whose plays, I believe, are Mr. LeBrun's next productions here. So many. I can't describe to you each of their plays, and most of them have no plays in print. Certain publishers are trying to do something about that now. Richard Hall, whose Happy Birthday Daddy, I believe Mr. LeBrun did last year. There are playwrights who for a long time were afraid to write gay, who finally came out. 2 geniuses named Jeff Weiss and Harry Katukas, who unfortunately have no plays in print yet. I could go on. There are playwrights who have written only 1 gay play. How many of you have seen Mr. Levin's Death Trap? You know, here's a man who wrote all sorts of plays, got an idea for a play with gay characters, and because of the freedom that had been won by these other writers, was able to present it on Broadway with no great fuss. Ran for years. Most people don't even think of it as a gay play. But once, there simply could not even have been the fleeting moment about the character's gay relationship. The play would, well, it wouldn't have been produced in the first place. It might have been in trouble with the police if it did, and people wouldn't have gone to see if it opened. The birth of the Chino began the process by which a play like A Chorus Line, which has 2 casually gay characters in it, or Death Trap, can open on Broadway and run for years and years and years and years and years and years. You know, once Chorus Line would have been condemned instantly as a gay play. Would have had no chance of a commercial production. You know. A lot of people bled and died for that freedom. I'm looking to see if there are any other specific lessons here. Okay. Unfortunately, gay theater has never had an organ, you should pardon the pun, a network, a connecting magazine, literature authority. So, for instance, in Chicago, there are some playwrights, among them Richard Paul and Neil Petricka, and many others, whose work is known only in Chicago. Some of these men have done dozens of plays. They're great celebrities in Chicago, but they've never found another place to do their plays. The rest of the world doesn't know about them. They come and go and fade away. A lot of people give up. These people didn't. In LA, San Francisco, Portland, Oregon, Austin, Texas, Boston, I've seen marvelous plays that are never going to be known, you know, until, the gay magazines begin to publish gay plays, you know, and get them out around the world. It's happening slowly. There are now 2 anthologies of gay plays. 3 cheers. I guess I should, an interesting point is the people who have recently entered gay theater, great celebrities or great authorities, who, because the movement has grown so, have found the courage to come out. Eric Bentley, the translator of Brecht and the great theatrical scholar, the last few years has come forward and written a couple of gay plays. He feels very excited about it, very cheerful. He's an elderly man, but he feels reborn. At last, he can write from his own experience. Jerome Lawrence, the writer of West Side Story and The Way We Were, and any number of huge films, a few years ago came to the Glines in New York with a script. He said, it's gay, but it's good. And came out. Jerry Herman, author of what, Mame and Dolly and all that, whatever, came out with La Cage aux Folles. Had been unable to write for years, and finally was inspired by the success of Torch Song Trilogy to just stamp his foot and come out and write gay, and was cheered wildly on Broadway for it. It's a beautiful moment. Unfortunately, not all moments are beautiful. Albert Inarado, the brilliant author of Gemini, which is made into the film Happy Birthday, Gemini. I saw the play when it was first brought up from Yale to New York, at which time it ended with the undecided boy realizing he was gay and leaving. The first preview in New York, Mr. Inarado was suddenly surrounded by 1,000 people who smelled money, but told him he had to change that ending. That boy couldn't be gay. People wouldn't pay to see that. And finally put a very compromised ending on it. It's still an enchanting play. But Albert had a lot of trouble after that deciding what to write, and hasn't given us much in recent years. Did write one gay play called Benno Blimpie, about a gay boy who hated himself so much he ate himself into being 500 or 600 pounds overweight. It was critically praised, but no one went to see it. And Albert really hasn't given us much since then. The fear of writing gay, the failure of one gay play seemed to drive him away. Not all Indians are happy. We're all waiting for a gay play from Mr. Durang, who has come out now to the press, but still hasn't written a gay play. Can't quite get his foot in the water. And many people feel that his recent work shows the strain of it, that he's become extremely forced and awkward. And that it would be very good for him to relax and write from his own feelings. Okay. That's 2 kinds of Wilsons. How are we doing on time, Raymond? Okay. Robert Wilson, whom you may not know. Robert is a director, not a writer. But he exemplifies another whole approach that gay artists have taken to theater. Unable to come to grips with their gayness and reveal it openly, a lot of gay people have created extraordinary avant-garde styles, in some part to conceal their gayness. Abstract theater, evocative theater, symbolic theater, cubistic theater. We, weirdly enough, have fear of revealing their homosexuality to thank for a lot of fine artists. I'm not sure that Gertrude Stein would have invented her oblique abstract style if she hadn't been afraid that her lesbianism would seep through. A lot of these people, I can't give you the names because they obviously haven't chosen to come out. Some distant examples are Mr. Genet, who in his printed works has been wildly openly gay, but whose plays, until a certain point, were oblique, abstract, surreal, existential, very possibly for fear that an openly gay play would frighten audiences away. You have to make money immediately in theater. A play isn't like a novel. It can't lie around and slowly find an audience, I mean, One is not saying these people are cowards to do this. There are good economic reasons as well as emotional reasons. Jean-Claude Van Natale, who worked with a wonderful group called the Open Theater in New York, almost all of whom were gay, along with them, wanted very much to be in the closet and created a brilliant abstract style that has influenced hundreds of other theaters. Now, Mr. Van Natale finally came out, and what's more, wrote a porn movie. When he came out in a big way. A Wilfrid Leach, who finally wound up producing, some of you may have been to New York and seen his wonderful productions of The Pirates of Penzance, or La Boheme, or Drood. For a long time, Wilfrid was one of the most creatively abstract directors off-Broadway, always trying to conceal any gay element, always worried a gay element would show in his work, and therefore trying to keep any concrete element from showing. He got much more relaxed about it in the last year of his life and just began directing musicals. I did want to mention certain drag elements under this. Drag, oddly enough, has often been a means of concealing homosexuality. Okay? When Charles Ludlam, who recently died, unfortunately, began doing his drag plays, they were received open-armed by the critics in a way that an openly gay play wouldn't be. For some reason, people who are very, very homophobic, or homophilophobic, to use the proper term, will embrace drag. I've never understood it. You'd think that would be the most frightening thing to them. But people who cannot stand to see a man embrace another man will praise as delightful camp, hilarious spoof, wild burlesque, a play in which all the men wear women's dresses. I don't know why, but Mr. Ludlam, once he found this formula, ran a very successful theater for, God, a dozen years in New York, always playing. He played Camille and was wonderful and was never accused of being a gay theater. No critic ever said, straight people will not enjoy this show, as they do so many great gay plays. They flocked down, he was successful, prized, awarded, you know. It was quite amazing. If anyone could ever explain to me why straight people adore drag but hate faggots. La Cage aux Folles is another case in point. Do you know that play about the drag queen and his more or less straight-looking lover? The night I saw it, I was running a play downtown called Blue is for Boys. And I saw these huge audiences here at La Cage aux Folles. I said, well, maybe they'd like Blue is for Boys. So I ran down and stood out front and leafleted the people coming out of the play. All of them delighted to have seen this gay couple get back together, so happy, having such a good time. And when I handed them the leaflet, which said New York's best gay play, virtually without exception, they'd look at it and say, I don't want to see a gay play. Just amazing. One wondered what they thought they'd just seen. Okay? So in a way, drag has often been a way of disguising your gayness. A wonderful writer named Charles Bush, some of you may have been to New York and seen Vampire Lesbians in Sodom, which I believe Mr. LeBrun also hopes to bring here. It's been running for years. You know, no gay play off-Broadway has ever been so accepted. And its cast is a bunch of men dressed as women playing lesbians. It's so involuted, but they're not gay. Okay? Mr. Ronnie Tubell also did some brilliant satirical plays employing drag. And, of course, as we know, Mr. Bowie, Mr. Elton John, and the group Kiss came right out in drag on stage. And, you know, what certainly was drag. And it was years before any suspicion was cast on any of them. It's an enigma to me. Can't solve it. Our fourth empty column about the Wilsons, and a fourth kind of gay theater. Mr. Wilson is a young man I met just before I came here. He's the lyricist and composer of a marvelous, sprightly gay revue called the 10% Revue. Played in Boston. He took it to New York. I think he's taken it other places. It's cabaret. You know? And there's so much of this sort of spontaneous gay cabaret, gay-oriented cabaret. I know little or nothing about it, but I consider that it is a fourth wave. Hopefully it's going to result in some gay musicals. You know, right now we really only have La Cage aux Folles, Boy Meets Boy, and a couple of others that have not worked out so well. I think gay musicals will mean as much to gay people as straight musicals have always meant to them, and maybe we can finally get Mame out of her drag and have her be a gay man. But I think very much that this cabaret, light, Once there couldn't be light gay entertainment, you understand. Is that a signal, Raymond? Once there couldn't be light gay entertainment. It was such a daring act to present a gay character on stage that the plays were automatically heavy. I know when I first put on my first play, The Haunted Host, a comedy about a gay man who throws a hustler out of his house and stands up on his own 2 feet. The reviews were so somber. They spoke of the daring, of the eccentric subject that not everybody might feel comfortable with. And all I'd written was a good old-fashioned love farce, you know. But now, you know, to some extent, people, straight people, gay people, all kinds of people, can go to a cabaret, watch a lighthearted review, which may include a couple of gay love songs, watch a drag queen who takes off his wig at the end and sings and doesn't pretend that he's not a gay man. Watch Jimmy James imitating Marilyn Monroe and then have him come out in the second half of his act as a man and accept him, you know. This may not be the heaviest or most important gay theater aesthetically, but socially, the fact that it can exist cheers me a lot. I think it is a fourth wave. What's our time, Raymond?
Another half hour.
Okay. Let me tell you a little about myself. I did start writing gay plays in '64 at the Chino. I've done so ever since, interspersing them with all kinds of plays. I would say 20% of my plays are gay plays. I was lucky. I've been making a living from playwriting since about '66 or '67. I have suffered for my gay plays. There are critics in New York who won't come see my straight plays, for instance. There are schools that won't do my published plays anymore because I do things like come to the Out on the Town Theater. I've enjoyed it. I've suffered for it somewhat. I've been awfully lucky to keep going, to find encouragement for all my plays. I, for instance, was lucky enough to, in my work with high school theaters, which I've done a great deal of the last 12 years, to go from a high school theater convention in good old Muncie, Indiana, where I received a major award for my services to high school theater and youth, to fly from there to Boston to open a gay theater with a scurrilous play about filthy people having perverted sex in the park, and not to be ostracized from either world because of the other. I've written copiously for both straight and gay magazines as a journalist. I've done a little TV, and most of my time now I spend doing this. You know, I go on so about myself because I now want to open to questions. I welcome your questions, and I hope that we'll get them. If we don't, I'll keep talking. Yes, yeah.
Maybe this is wrong. I have a feeling that a number of people like Bowie have actually turned, and that bisexuality is no longer in. I think Bowie's come out with an autobiography in which he said that he only pretended to be slightly homosexual for publicity.
Sure.
Is this going to be a trend? Is this going to happen?
Well, you must understand that for Mr. Bowie, tens of millions of dollars are at stake. And he may value the tens of millions of dollars more than his conscience. Yeah. That's for everybody to decide for themselves. I don't know if it's a trend. I know that a lot of young playwrights seem to be going a little bit batty because they long to write gay, but they're not quite sure it's going to be all right now. You know, a lot of people feel that the AIDS crisis has made people much more conscious and accepting of gays, but there are also a lot who feel that it's created immense negative energy against gays, and some young playwrights who've had a little success with their straight plays are afraid that if they take that one step into the gay world, like Mr. Inarado, that it will have very bad repercussions on them. And they're going through a lot. You people's support of theaters like Out on the Town can help encourage other writers. We very much need to know what the young gay people are thinking, and theater is a terrific way to express it. More? Yes?
Let me tell a story about two beautiful playwrights and one fellow that
Oh, all right. Mr. Wilkins reminded me of a story I told about two teenage playwrights. One of them has been extraordinarily successful. Plays he wrote at 17, 18, and 19 are done all over the country in high schools. He's one of the most performed playwrights in high schools. He longs to write gay and is afraid of losing that audience. Okay? He discovered another play by a teenage gay playwright called Remedial English, which actually won a prize in a nationwide teenage playwriting contest and was produced in New York. So young gay playwright A discovered this play and took it to the magazine that publishes all his plays for high schools. It's a charming play about a gay kid in high school. Lighthearted, funny, sweet. And the magazine said, not on your life. And he spent a year trying to get them to publish it. He couldn't believe they were rejecting a play of such value to so many high school students. And they said flatly, no, no way. They would even risk losing their star young teenage playwright to avoid publishing this. He's become so disillusioned now he doesn't know what to do. He's extraordinarily discouraged from writing gay. And it's from the latest play of his I've seen where he tried to write straight, it's fucking up his straight playwriting too. There's that thing wanting to come out now. And when he tries to cover it up, the strain shows. I feel great sympathy for them and sympathy for y'all because you may not get to see his wonderful gay play. I think gay theater is extraordinarily important. Straight people often ask, why do you have to have gay theater? Why gay theater? Why isn't it just theater? Some of it gay, some of it straight. Well, for the short form, I say to them, because you can ask that question, because you still think of it as something alien, strange, separate. There must be gay theater until nobody notices that it's gay theater. Now, that's political, of course. I mean, that's just as there must be gay everything until people accept it. But for the long form, straight people don't know or realize what theater means to them. They are so inundated with millions of images on TV, movies, books, every kind of art. They have 1,000 images of themselves to choose from. Role models, examples, good examples, bad examples, warnings on how to be heterosexual, how to get along, how to relate to somebody else. Straight teenagers go to the movies and learn how to flirt, they learn how to kiss, It's great. Gay people don't have it, or until very recently. I never saw a gay play. I never saw a gay movie. I never saw a gay TV show. I never found a gay book till I was 14 or 15. A boy and girl who go see a teenage movie, they both see it and they say, oh, well, if I act like the boy in the movie and she acts like the girl in the movie, we'll wind up kissing. Gay kids didn't have that. And now they do. There's beginning to be images of gay life. Gay people, a whole generation of gay people now has seen gay people in movies, gay people in books, gay people on TV, gay people on stage. It's nice. It feels good. Gives you jokes to tell each other. Maybe gives you a way of relating to each other. Maybe helps you explain something to somebody. You say, well, it's like that play we saw. These are little luxuries, important luxuries that straight people have had for thousands and thousands of years that gay people haven't had. Some gay people are scared of it. They'll actually flee from their first glimpse of familiar incidents on stage. But they come trickling back, And it's been a joy to watch over the decades. The alternative is imitations of straight people. How many of you remember the clone movement? When the middle-class kids first got into the gay movement and were terrified of the tacky, trashy glamour of the original gay rebels and fled to the only model they knew, the straight world, and all started dressing like the Marlboro Man. It got to where when you walked down Greenwich Street in New York, you couldn't tell if you'd met people or not. They all looked so much alike. Well, that's the alternative. One kind of closeted conformity or another. We need not less but more gay theater, more gay movies, more gay TV shows. Give the people something to reflect. Questions? Wave hands. Yes? Matt Crowley, Boys in the Band, yeah. Oh, I think so, sure. That came out in '68, the play. By that time we were all steeped in gay theater off. This one opened at an expensively backed showcase theater downtown and was swooped uptown and became the first commercially successful modern gay play. In that sense, it was tremendously politically significant. Wow, a gay play can run, it can make money, it can get respectful reviews, it can run for years, it can become a movie. So just, you know, just in that political area, it was tremendously important. I think the first act is marvelous. I think the second act is weak. I'm speaking as a playwright. A lot of people now say, well, Boys in the Band with all those bitchy, alienated, depressed queens is dated. Well, that may be, but I still know a lot of them. I know a lot of 16-year-old ones. I know it's very fashionable now to say the Boys in the Band is dated, but I've seen the Boys in the Band produced 3 or 4 times in a row by gay theaters and out-of-the-way places where the people were still so depressed and alienated that Boys in the Band seemed like a good role model to them. You know, there's a certain superficial politicization of life that's taken place in America since the 60s, where you're supposed to pretend that the ideal has already been achieved. And since the new ideal of gay people is very opposed to the way the people in Boys in the Band behave, we're supposed to pretend there's nobody like that. That, to my way of thinking, is silly. You know, but as I say, I think it's a marvelous play. I think the second act is weak. That's my only concern with it as a playwright. And I still know those people. And they're not in their 20s and 30s either. A lot of them I know are 16 and 17. And they're going through the same thing. Every place that I go where I do gay theater, there's always some kid hanging around outside looking so desperately as if he'd like to go in. But he's still scared. I mean, for him, there's been no gay revolution. He still has to go to his family, his church, his school, pretend to be straight. If he gets together with his gay friends, they either talk about how awful it is, or else the release of tension probably makes them carry on like Queenie. You know, I don't think it's old-fashioned at all. I think for a lot of people, it's their first gut identification with the dramatic role. There's another hand, yes. Oh, God, you're right. Well, I only met him the day before I came. Forgive me. You're right, you're right. Tom, forgive me. I want him to write the music for my next show. Can you erase that part of the tape where I had it wrong? Thanks, thanks. He's marvelous fun. I can't wait to see the show. Yes, I saw another hand. Yes. All right. Yes, but I can't tell you because they've chosen to do that. You know, I'm sorry, I can't blow anybody's cover. I'd like to, but yes, some. Not many, some. I know a lot of novelists who do it, and very profitably in both cases. I almost think that's good because that separates their two markets in that case. But in theater, where I do think as plays like La Cage aux Folles and Torch Song have proved, if you get people in front of a good play, the contact makes it all right. So I don't think it's necessary in theater, though people do it. Yeah. Yes? Okay. The young man asked about my plays Untold Decades, which are currently running on this stage, courtesy of Out of the Town Theater, and about how they relate to role models. Untold Decades is specifically a history. There are 7 one-acts in it, each in different decades, the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. I was more concerned with reminding people that we have always been here and projecting what did happen to us in those plays, of course, than in projecting an ideal role model. You understand? Yeah. I have another play called Blue is for Boys, which specifically tries to project the role model or the idea that gay boys are no different from straight boys, that they're, with certain cultural differences, the behavior of teenage gay boys is exactly like the behavior of teenage straight boys. You know? And in that one, I'm very consciously trying to do something to people's mind, to their image of themselves. I would like all the gay kids who come to see it to go out feeling better about themselves, you know, feeling that they are at least not unnatural. They may be a little abnormal, but they're not unnatural. Yes? Yes? Because it's history. I wasn't aware that the play said everything revolves around ugly sex. That fascinates me. The 60s play, for instance, concerns two characters who are labeled in the play fag and stud, because that's how they would have thought of themselves in the 60s. Each of them trapped in a role. Stud is a beautiful, muscular guy who stands silent and everybody cruises him and everybody wants him. Fag is a little wispy fairy who is very effeminate, who hates himself and pursues stud and never expects to be wanted. And the joke of the play is that they are trapped in a fog where they can't see each other, and each pretends to be like the other, because stud is tired of only being wanted for his beauty, and so he pretends to be ugly and hopes someone will love him for his soul. Fag is tired of not being wanted and pretends to be a beautiful blonde sex god in the fog. Yeah. But that's history. I mean, that's what it was like in New York in the 60s, the gay life that I knew. And as far as perpetuating negative stories, no, that's what it was like. Negative, positive. Sorry, that's the way it was. Do I make my point? Yeah. I'm not interested in projecting ideals that didn't exist. I'm perfectly willing to project ideals in hopes I can bring them to exist. But I'm violently opposed to many of the gay theaters around the country are run by yuppies now who say, oh, we don't want to put anything unpleasant on stage. You know, let's just take that reference out, you know. And the plays that you see that they put on are dry, empty, pointless. Is sex an important factor in a gay play? Can be. So far in all gay plays, or? Well, our sex life is what we are condemned and hunted down and killed for. It is the difference. It's what most people's gay life is about. You know, until very recently, when there started being areas of our cities where gay people could relate to one another in a non-sexual way. So there's, you know, in the past, if there was any gay institution in any area, it tended to be a gay bar, where the lights were low, music was played too loud to talk, you could only go in, pick out somebody you liked by their looks, have quick furtive sex with them with no opportunity to relate in another way, and split, and not dare be seen together anywhere else. So, yes, for most of gay life, I think for most gay people, that has been their gay life, their sex life. You know, now it's starting to grow, change. Yes?